I was never supposed to see it. Just another late night at the office, buried in reports no one else would touch. Then one click too far into a restricted server folder, and everything changed. On the screen, her, our CEO, naked, on her knees, and behind her, the client we were blackmailing 2 weeks later. That night didn't just break my ethical standards. It broke me. Offshore accounts, weaponized seduction, audio manipulation, the art gallery launches, just cover for sex tapes, blackmail, and political leverage. The luxury resorts, wired with surveillance systems that caught everything. I was trained to monitor risks. But what do you do when the entire company is built on carefully curated crimes? This isn't a story about doing the right thing. It's about watching the world's most powerful woman weaponize every human emotion, including mine, until there's no difference between sex, business, and betrayal. Welcome to Shadowed Truths, The Observer's Tale. This is the part they never let you see. So if you think you've heard it all, you haven't. Hit follow on your favorite platform now, because the next story might just change the way you see everything. Don't miss a single twisted turn. The first thing they teach you in corporate compliance is that integrity isn't about what you see. It's about what you pretend not to. I've spent the last 11 years pretending. My name is Isabella Hart, Director of Compliance at Elysian Enterprises, a global luxury conglomerate whose polished brand is only rivaled by the silence it purchases. I sit on the 39th floor of a Manhattan skyscraper that smells like wealth. Glass walls, silent elevators, and the faint trace of imported jasmine oil diffused into the recycled air. From this vantage point, I've watched politicians beg for dinner invites. Celebrities hand over NDAs like love notes. And our executives? They don't lead. They seduce the market. But seduction has a smell, a rhythm, a shadow. I noticed the first anomaly on a Wednesday. Most people don't know this, but every multi-billion-dollar empire has a dirty little secret folder in its server, buried under 10 layers of compliance audits, password protections, and internal proxies. At Elysian, it's called Echo, a server no one touches unless they're either suicidal or stupid. That day, a late sync error forced me into a manual check. That's when I found it, a file marked simply, nightsuite04_co.mp4. I didn't mean to click. I didn't even breathe when I did. The first frame was artfully lit, a dim, amber-lit penthouse suite. Music low, a jazz loop I recognized from one of our branded Paris galleries. Then she appeared, Genevieve Marrow, our CEO, the most composed, brilliantly manipulative woman I've ever known. Hair like a luxury ad, intellect sharper than the best litigators. And in that footage, she was kneeling. Not figuratively. Naked. Kneeling. Behind her, a man, face shadowed, whispered something that made her eyes close like prayer. I froze. The footage wasn't pornography. It was control. At the 32-second mark, Genevieve turned and looked directly into the camera. Not in shock. Not surprised. It was like she knew. Like she wanted to be watched. I closed the file, but not before noticing the metadata. Accessed 34 times. Locations: Zurich, Seoul, Lagos, Washington, D.C. Whatever this was, it wasn't just an affair. It was engineered, broadcasted, stored, replicated, circulated, controlled. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in my penthouse apartment with blackout curtains drawn, scrolling through my own files like I was holding a gun with a bent barrel. I kept wondering, who else saw that footage? More importantly, why was I seeing it now? I arrived at work the next morning in a white blouse and a lie. Genevieve passed me in the hallway, silent, unreadable. She wore crimson lipstick, like blood-stained power. Her assistant, Cole, trailed her carrying a leather portfolio and the weight of something unseen. When she glanced at me, her eyes lingered. Just for a second. But in that second, I knew she knew I had seen it. And just like that, I was no longer a compliance officer. I was a liability. I spent the rest of the day locked in my office, digging. What I found next was worse. Our offshore entities weren't just hiding tax havens. They were linked to video distribution contracts. Encrypted metadata pointed to an internal system called Spectre, a behavioral archive of guests, clients, and partners, all recorded, categorized, and indexed by sexual act, location, and leverage value. It wasn't just surveillance. It was social manipulation at scale. Art gallery openings, brand retreats, investor weekends in the Caribbean. They weren't events. They were psychosexual traps, choreographed, filmed, archived. Then traded. By the time the sun set, I wasn't breathing through lungs anymore. I was breathing through fear. Through adrenaline. Through mind-racing questions and buried instincts. And somewhere, under the noise, a single thought repeated itself like static in a broken speaker. This isn't about ethics. This is about survival. And survival, I learned, is just another form of silence. There's a sound to fear. It's not screaming. Not breaking glass. It's softer. Slower. It's the hum of a private elevator rising without anyone pressing a button. It's the click of heels that don't echo. It's silence, placed precisely where conversation should be. That's what Elysian Enterprises sounded like the morning after I opened the Spectre logs. Everything looked the same. Polished floors, art installations curated from modern surrealists, a $2.4 million Damien Hirst in the reception area we claimed was on loan. But something had shifted. Or maybe I had. My eyes weren't scanning for policy gaps anymore. They were scanning for patterns, body language, group behavior, and the way certain executives stopped speaking when I passed. The first whisper came from the wellness floor. That's what we called it. Wellness, though it was really a polished reward center. Dim spa lighting. Espresso bar. C-level executives recharging before another assault on the market. I passed through only because I knew the Spectre access logs traced back to a biometric scanner outside the infrared sauna suite, which meant someone at the top was manually authorizing entry. That's where I heard them. Two voices. A man and a woman. Low. Heated. Familiar. We said it wouldn't be visible. You told me the suite had blind spots. It did. But if she accessed it, we'll have to make a decision. Soon. I stayed in the hallway, half hidden behind a moss wall that cost more than my annual salary. Then I saw them. Lyle Oren, Senior VP of Global Development, and Sierra Vale, Chief Brand Officer, and Genevieve's closest friend. Sierra adjusted her diamond cufflinks like she was fitting them to cut. Lyle's jaw tightened as he tapped something into a secure device. They didn't notice me. Or maybe they did, and were simply too deep in the theater of damage control to care. I retreated quietly. But I didn't go back to my office. I went to archives. Now, archives isn't just where documents live. It's where they're disappeared. We built the system to comply with the EU's right to be forgotten protocols. A program that allowed executives to manually erase incidents, meetings, and behavior logs from all internal databases. The only way in is with a level 7 biometric key. I have level 8. Inside the archives terminal, I searched for Sierra's deletion logs. And there it was. Deleted, July 9, 2023. File name, G_Marrow_Suite09_Angelica. Accessed 12 times. Encrypted tag, mitigation strategy, Tier 1 Senator. Angelica. Not a name I recognized, but one that now lived only in erased memory and metadata. Who was she? A whistleblower? A target? A lover-turned-liability? The deeper I dug, the more the faces blurred together. Artists, athletes, journalists, even public health advisors. All appearing in logs that shouldn't exist. Elysian's core product wasn't luxury. It was influence. Engineered through desire. Captured through surveillance. Weaponized through behavioral psychology. And Genevieve? She wasn't the queen of this empire. She was its algorithm. I printed nothing. Downloaded nothing. Just memorized what mattered. Then I made the first mistake of my life since joining Elysian. I confronted Cole. He was always near Genevieve, quiet, discreet, fast with encrypted clearance. If anyone knew how to access the surveillance core directly, it was him. And in the world of manipulation, it's not what you ask. It's how you stand when you ask it. I waited outside his office and entered uninvited. You ever wonder what it feels like, I said, to be seen without knowing you're being watched? He didn't blink. Just locked eyes with me, dark and unreadable. Only by people worth watching back. A pause. Heavy. Cold. Then he pulled out a drawer and placed a small, metallic keycard on the table between us. If you want answers, don't come back here, he said. Go to Geneva. Tower 4. Floor 11. Ask for the curator. And Isabella, don't trust her. Trust who? I asked. He smiled faintly. You'll know when she asks about the white orchid. My breath froze. My stomach twisted. Because that morning when I arrived at my desk, there had been a white orchid waiting in a crystal vase. No card. No sender. Just petals. White. Pristine. One edge stained faintly a red. I arrived in Geneva 2 days later under a false identity. No one at Elysian had sanctioned this trip. My flights weren't booked through company channels. My hotel wasn't the kind our executives used, not sleek and towering but old, quiet, dignified. I needed anonymity, not concierge service. Tower 4 stood like an obsidian fong along the Rhone. No logos, no reception, no posted directory. Just an anonymous revolving door, and a mirrored lobby where even your reflection seemed too loud. Floor 11. No button. Just a scanner. I used the keycard Cole had given me. The doors opened into what looked like an art gallery. Minimalist, immaculate, scented faintly of vetiver and subtle corruption. Abstract canvases floated on pure white walls. Sculptures rose from black marble pedestals like sirens. The lighting was surgical. Intentional. She was waiting at the center. The curator. Not a title. Not a job. A warning. She was tall, in an ivory silk blouse and a navy pencil skirt that cut like truth. Her presence had weight. She didn't ask my name. Just gestured to the glass of rose already poured for me on a side table beside an untouched white orchid. Another one. You came, she said. I wasn't sure you would. I need to know what I saw, I said. Who it's for. Who's collecting it? She circled me slowly, like studying an exhibit. Seduction, she said, is the oldest form of data extraction. But your generation forgot that. You call it psychological manipulation now. Erotic leverage. Behavioral tactics. What do you call it? She stopped in front of me. Art. She tapped on a hidden panel, and the wall behind her flickered. A split screen of videos emerged, dozens of them. Men. Women. Powerful. Naked. Exposed. In hotel rooms. Boardrooms. Yachts. Laughing. Moaning. Crying. You see bodies, she said. I see consented control. Most of them think they're falling in love. This is blackmail, I said. No. It's insurance. You insure your home, don't you? This, she waved at the wall, is how people with real value protect their capital. Through intimacy. I didn't speak, because part of me was horrified, and another part, the part no one ever meets unless they push me far enough, understood. She continued. Every subject signs an NDA. Most aren't even coerced. We offer something bigger than money, validation. They want to be seen. And we capture the true body intelligence behind the mask. She handed me a small, smooth obsidian token. It had no engraving. Just wait. This grants you access to Vault Echo. Once. No screens. Just direct observation. There, you'll learn what role you play in this story. I didn't ask for a role. No, she said. But you earned one the moment you kept watching. I left with nothing but that token and a feeling I couldn't name. A blend of desire and dread, of human dynamics turned into chess pieces. Back at the hotel, I stripped off my blazer, poured myself a drink, and stared at my reflection in the glass. I looked like someone I didn't recognize. Not a compliance officer. Not a whistleblower. A woman caught in a web she didn't know she was building. I opened my laptop, logged into my private secure drive. There it was. A new file. Orchid_log03.mp4. I clicked it. This one was me. Not in a meeting. Not at my desk. In my apartment. Shirt half unbuttoned. Wine in hand. Talking on the phone. My voice saying something I didn't remember saying. I don't trust her. She's always watching me. A camera hidden inside my wall mirror had been watching me. I wasn't just the observer anymore. I was part of the gallery. There are rooms in the corporate world that don't exist on blueprints. They're never mentioned in onboarding manuals. They're not in fire drills or server logs. They're built for one purpose: to observe in ways that would undo a person if they ever found out. Vault Echo was one of those rooms. I found it beneath the main Elysian complex in Zurich, a subterranean level beneath the public-facing Innovation Lab. No badge scanners. No retina scan. Just the obsidian token the curator had pressed into my palm. A silent elevator carried me down into darkness. When the doors opened, I didn't walk into a room. I walked into a memory machine. Dark matte walls. A central table made of pure glass. Along the curved edges of the room were 10 freestanding monitors, each one displaying surveillance feeds, deepfake reconstructions, audio breakdowns, and psychological profiles. But what made me step back, what cut through my calm, was that each screen was labeled not by name, but by emotion. Fear 0041. Arousal 0199. Guilt 0207. Revenge 0018. One of them said, Isabella, compliance officer. Mind racing. My own profile. Emotion tracked. Behaviorally tagged. My metadata on full display. Phone calls, gait analysis, audio tone mapping from board meetings. Body language broken down to statistical persuasion points. I reached for the interface. It didn't ask for a password. It recognized me by heartbeat. Then the voice came through the speaker. Genevieve, I knew you'd come here eventually. Her tone wasn't angry. It was warm, intimate. You've always been the type who thinks silence is noble. That morality is some anchor you drag through every decision. But that's not strength, Isabella. That's performance. I froze. She was watching me. Live. Vault Echo doesn't just store secrets. It trains influence models. Human behavior is the most under-leveraged asset on Earth. Everyone thinks data is numbers. We know better. We track desire. The screens began to change. Not footage from hotels or meetings, but synthetic projections of people's reactions. Simulated outcomes, showing what a person would do, feel, or say under certain emotional conditions. This is our true product, she said. We don't just predict behavior. We design it. I watched as a simulation of me was overlaid onto a campaign event. It showed how I would behave if confronted publicly with Spectre's existence. I watched myself lie convincingly. I watched myself cry. I watched myself confess. Then the screen blinked red. Probability of compliance, 91%. Probability of exposure, 7%. Mitigation recommended. Psychological integration / erotic containment strategy tier 2. I stepped back. Heart pounding. Jaw locked. They weren't just cataloging blackmail. They were engineering personality control loops. Social manipulation converted into scalable corporate policy. We weren't employees. We were controlled variables in a behavioral psychology experiment that knew us better than we knew ourselves. I wanted to run, but my feet didn't move, because at the very end of the room, behind a wall of curved glass, I saw one final screen, playing footage in real time. 2 people. A suite. A private dinner. The woman, Genevieve. The man, Senator Dorian Cray, chair of the Global Trade Ethics Committee. They were negotiating trade regulation using sex like it was a currency. It wasn't scandal. It wasn't seduction. It was contractual arousal. He reached for her. She leaned in, and just before the screen faded, she looked into the camera. Again, I left Vault Echo trembling. But this time it wasn't just fear. It was purpose. Because now I understood why Genevieve never flinched. She didn't need to control the market. She was controlling the emotions of the people who controlled the market. And I was next on the list. People think offshore accounts are about hiding money. That's cute. Offshore accounts are about hiding identities, funding strategies that don't belong to a person or a business. They belong to an agenda. After Vault Echo, I didn't return to New York. Not yet. I went south to Grand Cayman, where Elysian's Caribbean Holdings subsidiary lived behind a curtain of numbered accounts and minimalist beachfront offices that smelled like sunscreen and silent deals. On paper, Caribbean Holdings was a cultural foundation promoting ethical marketing and local development. In reality, it was the nerve center of Spectre's laundering arm. Inside the vault archive, I found files tagged with phrases like behavioral reinforcement packages, emotional climate assets, and consent-based leverage streams. Every term was vague, every transaction clean. But once you knew what to look for, the patterns screamed. Genevieve wasn't just running a blackmail empire. She had created a behavioral stock market. Influence wasn't just tracked, it was valued, traded, and insured. Accounts weren't just tied to people. They were tied to psychological profiles. Erotic persuasion, tier 2. Coercion resistant, guilt responsive. Emotional manipulation, art collector segment. I found names. Not full ones, initials, metadata, access nodes. But I found mine. IH42713 emotional type, resistant empathic erotic value tier. Unknown containment status, escalating. They were studying me like a product. Even the transactions had their own language. Blue Orchid transfer approved. Vault sync, Geneva Nassau node confirmed. Reputation hedge, tier A asset 112. Active threat, audio manipulation in progress. I sat there, trembling in the cool silence of the archive, as a realization cracked across my mind like lightning. They were pre-managing my exposure. They had anticipated that I might defect, and built pre-recorded voice models to discredit me before I ever spoke a word. Voice cloning, video artifacts, preemptive scandal design. I was living in real time, but they were manipulating the version of me the world would believe. That night, I checked into a villa under a different alias and tried to sleep. I couldn't. I kept hearing Cole's voice. Don't trust her. I thought he meant Genevieve. But then, at 3:14 a.m., I received a message from an encrypted Proton Mail account. You're being watched by the wrong person. The curator isn't loyal to Genevieve. She's loyal to the Orchid Exchange. Check the files labeled Artistry, Internal Studies, Celestial Insight Cases. I opened the directory immediately. There were 10 case studies. All women. All brilliant. All recruited through art foundations tied to Elysian. All seduced. All erased. Every one of them had something in common. They were observers. Women who didn't fight back. Women who watched until it was too late. Each report ended with a red-stamped phrase. Emotional mitigation incomplete. Final outcome, psychological dissolution. Genevieve didn't need to silence me. She just needed me to feel unseen, to rot from the inside, to implode. It wasn't death. It was designed irrelevance. I closed the files, walked barefoot across the marble floor to the patio, looked out at the sea, and whispered, no, I wouldn't disappear. I wouldn't be another footnote in someone's emotional algorithm. I would burn the entire system down. But to do that, I'd have to seduce the manipulator. Genevieve Marrow was not built for seduction. She was built for dominion. It's a mistake to think people like her crave attention. They don't. They crave submission. Silent, absolute, internalized. They don't want applause. They want ownership of perception, of emotion, of choice. To confront Genevieve, I had to become interesting to her. Not dangerous. Not reactive. Interesting. And to do that, I had to lie. I returned to New York the next morning, dressed in silence and weaponized restraint. Hair pulled back. Minimal makeup. White blouse, soft tones. The image of compliance. The illusion of calm. Genevieve summoned me to her penthouse suite the moment she saw my name on the building's access log. That's how people like her operate. When they smell heat, they pull it close. The suite was everything you'd expect. Marble floors, panoramic skyline, and the unmistakable scent of aged rosewood and calculated power. She stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, barefoot, sipping something that looked like blood in a wine glass. You look thinner, she said. Cayman was good for you. I needed air. Isn't it strange, she mused, how sometimes when we search for truth, we find ourselves in the mirror instead. She turned, smiling, as if we were two old friends playing chess in a hurricane. And what did you see, Isabella? I didn't flinch. That I underestimated you. That I'm more like you than I want to admit. She raised an eyebrow, amused but wary. I sat down on the edge of the Italian suede sofa. Slowly, precisely. I wanted her to see the change, the stillness, the evolution. What do you want? She asked. I leaned forward just enough for her to feel a shift in energy. I want in. Silence. Even her breathing paused. For people like Genevieve, control is oxygen. And I had just offered her a hit. Into what exactly? Into the next layer, I said. I've seen Spectre. Vault Echo. I've read the Orchid case files. I want the part you don't archive. She smiled faintly. You're bold. No, I said. I'm awake. She walked toward me slowly, like a priestess circling the altar, her bare feet silent on the stone floor. Tell me, she said, voice just above a whisper, what was your favorite part of the surveillance footage? The moment you looked into the camera, I said. Like you wanted me to see you. Her expression shifted, almost imperceptibly. A crack. A flicker. She liked being watched, but even more, she liked being understood. You're the first person who's ever said that, she said. Most people think it's a mistake. A vulnerability. It wasn't. It was a statement. She nodded slowly, lips parted. Then let me show you what comes after submission. She extended her hand, not to shake, but to help me rise. And when I stood, we were eye to eye. Two women. One truth. Only she didn't realize something. I wasn't surrendering. I was infiltrating. That night, she took me to an underground facility in Brooklyn. Unmarked. No cameras. Just a biometric panel coded to her pulse. Inside, a room with no windows, no internet, and no laws. A room where engineers, behaviorists, artists, and NLP architects built scenarios, emotional maps of future targets. They called it the lab. It was the birthplace of emotional entrapment. We create the conditions, Genevieve said. They create the downfall. She walked me through simulation bays. Monitors glowing with intimate betrayals. A man watching his wife confess to an affair, pre-scripted. A woman crying into her phone as her boss offered her a promotion, tied to a sexual favor she never consented to, but would say yes to anyway. All of it rehearsed. Perfected. sold to clients who wanted to control the outcomes of relationships, deals, votes, entire emotional ecosystems. This wasn't blackmail. This was emotional engineering. Genevieve touched a screen. "This one," she said. "She's about to think it was all her idea. Watch." And I did. I watched a woman slowly unravel, convinced she was falling in love with a man who had been given her psychological blueprint 6 months earlier. I barely made it back to my apartment that night. I sat in the dark with my back against the door, knees pulled to my chest. I wasn't watching anymore. I was inside the algorithm now. But I had something no simulation could code for. Conscience. And conscience, when sharpened, becomes the most unpredictable weapon of all. Conscience doesn't whisper in places like a lesion. It claws. It chews at the walls of your rationality, scraping at every justification you've rehearsed to survive. By the end of that week, I had infiltrated Genevieve's inner circle. She believed me now, believed that I had evolved past hesitation. She trusted me with files labeled Tier 3 mitigations and consent drift scenarios. She sent me red envelopes with wax seals that weren't labeled, but understood. Inside each envelope, one name, one emotional profile, one outcome. Each one of those names came with an assignment: neutralize exposure. It was a test, to see if I would help them preemptively destroy someone's future, before they could speak, before they even knew they were in danger. I didn't sleep. That's the thing about being a watcher. When you start caring, you rot from the inside out. My body still moved through marble lobbies and candlelit, executive evenings. But my soul was strapped to a chair in Vault Echo, forced to watch as humanity was reconstructed through desire and leverage. The final push came with a name I recognized. Ari Mason, a junior analyst. Smart. Too smart. She'd once emailed me privately about a fund labeled Celestial Insight that seemed off. She thought it was a tech startup laundering scheme. She had no idea she was staring into the heart of Elysian's surveillance architecture. The envelope marked her as emotionally stable, empath tier, guilt sensitive. They had already built her entrapment scenario. Scenario type, false intimacy. Agent assigned, Xander, influence technician. Goal, seduce. Record, control. Leak possible. Destroy credibility preemptively. They were going to send someone into her life, someone trained to mirror her values, speak her love languages, activate her trust. Then use her heart as a weapon against her voice. I sat with the file all night, holding it, breathing, thinking. And then I did something I knew would get me killed. I warned her. Encrypted burner. Anonymous IP tunnel. I sent Ari everything, the plan, the agent's real name, the footage templates. I told her to resign immediately, to disappear. She didn't reply. But 3 hours later, her ID badge deactivated. She was gone. When Genevieve summoned me to her private lounge the next evening, I already knew what she was going to say. "She vanished," Genevieve said, sipping from her etched crystal glass. "Do you believe in coincidence, Isabella?" "Not here," I said. "You're trembling," she noted, studying me like a patient under soft interrogation lights. "I hope it's not guilt." "Guilt's not the problem," I said quietly. "It's knowing the weight of silence. Don't romanticize ethics. They're illusions for the poor," she said. "People like us live in the real world. We mitigate emotions, not validate them." She leaned closer. "You think this ends with exposure?" she asked. "That's adorable. Isabella, truth doesn't free people anymore. It bores them. The only thing that makes them feel anything is scandal. Sex. Shock. And we sell that beautifully." I looked at her. Really looked. No mask now. No charm. Just a creature engineered by betrayal, raised by leverage, armored in detachment. And for the first time, I didn't want to survive. I wanted to destroy. That night, I reached out to my only remaining asset, Cole. I told him everything. The lab Vault Echo. Ari. The scenarios. And the new phase Genevieve was preparing, political emotional warfare. They had already started crafting emotionally engineered scandals to control foreign leaders through carefully leaked personal crises that would push them to comply in trade negotiations. "Do you still believe in silence?" I asked him. "I never did," he said. "I just needed to know someone else was willing to bleed first." He handed me an unmarked external drive. "This," he said, "is the only backup copy of Spectre's global archive. Every footage stream, every psychological profile, every engineered betrayal. And what do you want me to do with it? Burn it all? Or leak it to the world? But whatever you choose." He looked at me. "Don't look away." I didn't. But I knew what I had to do next. And I'd only get one shot. I would go back into Vault Echo. Alone. Not to observe. Not to archive. But to expose everything from the inside. Even if it cost me everything I was. You don't announce a betrayal like this. You perform it. One layer at a time. Vault Echo's biometric system only allowed one active access profile per location at a time. It was Genevieve's final layer of control. Her way of ensuring no one could witness what they weren't meant to. Except now she had trusted me. She had invited me in. What she didn't know was that I had cloned her pulse. A temporary override, stitched together with Cole's help and a piece of tech smuggled out of Zurich by someone who was supposed to be dead. I wasn't just going into Vault Echo. I was going in as her. The elevator hummed like a throat clearing before a secret. When the doors opened, I entered with no fear in my body, just a white dress, clean gloves, and a blank hard drive the size of a coin resting under my tongue like communion. The vault didn't resist me. It recognized me. As her. Screens lit. Lights dimmed. The entire system bowed. And that's when I broadcasted. Every monitor, every external terminal, every Elysian-connected conference room across 5 continents suddenly flickered, paused, then played the truth. I didn't give them narration. I gave them raw, curated data. Just like Elysian taught me. One video after another. No edits. No redactions. Genevieve with foreign leaders. The curator coaching emotional responses mid-interaction via earpiece. Simulated romantic encounters with voiceover overlays explaining how neurolinguistic programming had triggered synthetic feelings. Charts mapping emotional manipulation onto market reactions. Whistleblowers seduced, recorded, then ruined. Children of executives recruited through art scholarships and groomed through customized persuasion methods. And in the middle of it all, my own footage. Of me. Watching. Processing. Breaking. By the time the internal security system realized what I was doing, it was too late. Everything had been mirrored, live-streamed, and uploaded to decentralized storage chains. Irreversible, unstoppable, permanent. I turned as the red lights flared and footsteps echoed through the upper vault hallway. Genevieve appeared, flanked by 2 silent, suited shadows. But she didn't scream. She didn't rush. She just stared at me. Calm. Almost proud. You finally chose a side, she said. No, I replied. I chose a mirror. And I held it up. You think this ends me? She asked. They'll consume this like entertainment. Scandal is currency now. This only makes me more powerful. Maybe, I said. But not as powerful as your silence. She raised an eyebrow. Because you'll finally have to live in it. I walked past her. No one stopped me. Because deep down they knew. The show was over. 3 days later, Elysian collapsed in public view. CEOs resigned. Politicians denied. Victims, real ones, spoke out. And the press? They fed on it like it was gospel. But this wasn't salvation. It was a reckoning. I don't work in compliance anymore. I don't work at all. I live in the shadows between who I was and what I exposed. Some nights, I still hear Genevieve's voice, echoing through my memory like a knife. Truth doesn't free people anymore. It bores them. Maybe she was right. But sometimes, boredom is the beginning of awareness. And awareness? That's the first fracture in the mask. There's no applause when the system falls. No confetti. No catharsis. Just silence, followed by the sickening sound of new hands reaching for the pieces. Elysian's collapse was surgical, fast, public, disorienting. Within 72 hours, its assets were frozen. Swiss banks complied. Cayman servers shut down. Vault Echo was sealed off by international regulators who didn't realize it had already been cloned 12 times. And Genevieve? She vanished. No arrest. No public statement. No resignation letter. Just a white orchid mailed to every major newsroom in the world. Its petals dipped in blood-red wax. Her calling card. I disappeared too. Not because I had to. Because I didn't trust myself not to go back. You don't live inside the mind of a manipulator that long without inheriting a few of their fingerprints. Their tools. Their instincts. Some mornings I wake up and catch myself calculating the room. Reading body language. Watching group dynamics. Evaluating emotional leverage like I'm still preparing a mitigation strategy. It doesn't leave you. It just learns to sleep deeper inside you. I live now in Portugal in a coastal village with no cameras. No skyscrapers. No curated conversations. My name isn't Isabella anymore. It's just someone quiet. Someone who learned what it costs to watch the world fall apart and still hold on to her humanity. I keep a journal. Not digital. Leather-bound. Every entry begins with the same sentence. You watched, but you didn't look away. Then last week something strange happened. A package arrived at my door. No return address. No courier confirmation. Inside, a small obsidian token, identical to the one Genevieve once gave me. Only this one was cracked, split clean down the middle, and under it a note. You thought the gallery burned? You were just watching the first exhibit. The curator. I stared at it for a long time. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I smiled, because the story wasn't over. And if the gallery's doors had reopened, I wasn't going back in as the observer this time. I was going in as the fire,